Hello everyone, how's it going? Billy Ballgame here, back with another video. On this channel, I'm just a dude who loves to talk about baseball cards. And what I wanted to do today is just kind of give a wrap up my overall impression on the National altogether, like the entire experience. I've already talked about my cards, so I'm not really going to dive into that too much. The purpose of today's video is I just wanted to talk about the venue, the hotel, everything revolving around the show, just not the card aspect of it specifically. So, before I do that, I wanted to show you a new display that I set up in my man cave on some blank spots on the wall. So the walls are quickly filling in here. Like every spot I can fill in is going to have something in it here pretty soon. So I may have to like rearrange some stuff and kick some stuff off at some point. But let me go ahead and show you that, and then I'll get into the show. So you've all seen that. I had to move Albert over because I created this display here. This is, the intent is at some point this will be my vintage Hall of Famers display. Now, obviously, Cal Ripken and Tony Gwynn, they're not vintage, but they're there for now for placeholders. There's the big pickup of the National that you've all seen. Then over here on the other side, when this side fills up, I've got a spot here underneath those autographed bats on this wall that I can use as well. And then what I did, another thing I did, let me go ahead and get this tripod set back up and spin this back around here. Again, Hollywood level. So I had Tom take pictures of the Gibson rookie. So I do have photographic evidence that I did own a Bob Gibson rookie, again, for about 45 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and pop a couple of those up on the screen. One is further away, and then I've got one that I'm going to zoom in so you can see the actual card better. And again, it was an amazing looking card. If there was one complaint about it, it was that the pink was a little bit light. I prefer the more Pepto-Bismol-y, darker pink on that card. But either way, the Bob Gibson was a great card, and now the Hank Aaron is a great card, and I'm glad to have the Hank Aaron. And Bob Gibson will be on my list to pick up hopefully sometime soon. I don't know if it will be this year because I'm really going to try to focus on getting a Roberto Clemente rookie, and hopefully I will either do that at Strongsville or the National in Chicago next year. But at this point, I haven't decided if I'm going to go to either one of those shows at this point. What I'm kind of thinking is I might do the National every other year. And again, I would really like to do Strongsville if my schedule lines up. But we'll see how it goes. I've got to start getting some money saved back up again. So that will take a while. So overall thoughts on the National. Again, this is my first National in really a little over 40 years or 30 years. I think I was probably 15 or 16 when I went to the show that I think was a National in St. Louis. And again, I've talked about the car ride. I'm not gonna hit on that again. So basically what I'll touch on to start is the hotel. Now, again, I've heard a lot of complaints on the hotel. And I really do think that Tom and I got tremendously lucky because really we didn't have any issues with the hotel at all. Like one morning I got down there later than I planned and there was no food on the breakfast bar, but that wasn't the hotel's fault really. That was my fault because they were busy, slammed, and I'm sure they didn't get a chance to restock it. But every time we went back and forth or got back and went up to our rooms, we did hear people complain about the hotel. Like people's cards kept working. They had to go get their key cards reconfigured so they would work for their rooms. I heard of the hotel having multiple people checked into the same room, so the door would open randomly, like in the evening or in the middle of the night, and that would be a little creepy. Um, the trying to I think it was Friday morning. Again, we spoke to some dealers from Minnesota or from Colorado at breakfast, and they said they had one of their employees leave the night before. Just said, "I'm done. I'm going home," because he was in the middle of a shower and the roof fell in on him because a pipe burst from upstairs. That's crazy. So overall, what I thought was it was maybe a little outdated. Like some of the walls were scuffed in our room, some of the seams on the wallpaper were peeling a little bit. To me, it reminded me of an older like La Quinta or Best Western. I didn't really have any complaints about it. It definitely wasn't the best hotel I've ever stayed in, but it definitely wasn't the worst either. So I'm really nothing to complain about on the hotel. So, and actually when we took an Uber back from Ash and Greg's get together on Friday night, the Uber driver that dropped us off or took us to that event, sorry, not on the way back, told us that hotel had set vacant, I think, since the pandemic, and it was going to be torn down and they were going to build something else there was the plan, but the people that own RL bought it and decided to open it back up. So my guess is it will go under extensive renovation here over the next few years. At least according to some people, I hope that it does. So that's the hotel. Let me see. The venue of the National itself, I thought was amazing. And again, I don't really have much to judge this off of because again, I was 15 or 16 years old when I went to my last National. I really enjoyed the layout. I liked how the autograph venue was over in another room. And you've probably heard me talk about it on previous videos. That's where Tom and I spent pretty much all of Wednesday. And from what I was told is the main dealers of the National that have been setting up at the National for years were in the big main room. And then kind of the newer dealers that were able to get into the National were over on the other side. I don't know if there's any truth to that. That's just what I was told. But again, so from what I've heard about Chicago and some of the other Nationals is, especially at Chicago, you can almost like get lost because there are so many rooms where stuff is kind of shoved into. I felt it was very easy to get around at this National. Now, you may have a little bit of a harder time walking directly straight to a dealer's table. But what I found was we got pretty close to where that dealer was, and then we would start circling around, and then we would find it. There were a few times where early in the show, like the first couple days, we were walking around with Don from a Field of Dreams cards and my buddy Chris from Missouri, and we got separated, and I knew which direction they had headed, and I was probably, I don't know, 10, 15 minutes behind them. And I walked in, they were in the autograph pavilion room, and I walked into that room and just started kind of glancing down all the aisles looking for a tall guy because Don's pretty tall. And then I was able to find him pretty easy. So the show floor itself I thought was great. I still don't think Tom and I saw the entire show floor. I don't think we saw every dealer table. We didn't spend much time in the corporate area because it was back toward the back and we didn't really need to. So we kind of skipped tables like I talked about early in the show, where if we found they were mostly modern stuff or they were way overpriced, we just didn't even go to that table. We skipped by it completely. And then we were able to see the vast majority of, I think, the vast majority of the vintage tables that had stuff that we were interested in. And there were several tables that we went to several times because they were making good deals. And Tom bought several cards that he bought from the same dealer going to their table more than once. So that was really effective for us. And again, we found the dealers that we went to were willing to make deals. The bathroom issue has been a complaint that I've heard quite frequently. To be honest with you, these next two things I'm going to talk about really for me were a minor inconvenience. The bathrooms were a minor inconvenience. I waited in the longest line, and I never, from the first day, never went back downstairs to the VIP lounge. So I have no idea how busy it was down there, if all the tables and chairs filled up, if there were lines to the bathroom down there. From what I've heard, there were not tremendous lines for the bathroom down in the VIP area. But we stayed upstairs almost the entire time, and the longest I waited in line for a bathroom was like 15 minutes. I know, and I didn't buy any food on the floor. I know the lines for food were insanely crowded. All those massive tables and chairs that they had set up by the food court, and then they had some back on the far wall too, lined up going down the whole length of the wall. Those all filled up. But really, when you have that many people crammed into a place, like, you would have to take up like half your show floor space to have enough tables and chairs for everybody to kind of sit down and get a break. But again, I didn't use it. I thought it was nice that they had tables and chairs, and they had places to get food. And again, the bathrooms to me were a minor inconvenience. Really, the biggest complaint that I had about the whole process was the parking. And we always came in the back way because it was more convenient from our hotel to go that way. So we never had to wait in the tremendous line of traffic to actually get into the venue. Coming from the back way, it was always much, much quicker. And so we would come in from the side, hang a left into the parking lot, and then go find our parking. Now, when we got back that first day in the afternoon before the sneak peek, all the VIP parking was filled up. The second day, when we got over there, all the VIP parking was filled up. And at the time, working on 2, 3, 5 hours of sleep at the most, that was frustrating. But they were able to get that figured out to where they expanded, I think, some of the parking kind of as you were looking at the venue up toward the front right. And we were able to get parked there, and then it wasn't nearly as long a walk. So the parking, once they got it figured out, once they got everything together and got it fixed, to me, again, it wasn't an issue. The lines were extremely long to get into the National for the general admission people. So I feel for them. I mean, I'm guessing some of these people probably stood in line for an hour or two out in the sun waiting to get in. But I'm glad that I paid for a VIP pass, specifically for that reason. So I didn't have to stand outside in the sun and bake and wait to get in. Because really, the only day that we waited to get in was the first day when we waited to get our VIP pass. And really, we waited in line for about 10 minutes for that. And then there was one morning, it might have been Saturday morning, maybe, where we waited. We got there before the early entry opened up. So we waited in the lobby for about 5 or 10 minutes. And then once they opened everything up, all the VIPs went in. And that was fine. I didn't have a problem with that either. So overall, everything involving the show, again, we didn't have any problems with the hotel. I would recommend that if it comes back to Cleveland, that the National maybe partner with a different hotel, because there were lots of complaints about that. But overall, I would give it a solid A minus. Like, I thought it was great. I thought the venue was amazing. And we just had a blast. So as you remember, another thing that am going to talk about, before I left, I had a list. Now, again, The Wi-Fi was very spotty once it really filled up. Like I never had Wi-Fi again. Like if I was checking comps on cards that weren't on my list, I had to have Tom do it. I have an Android and he has an iPhone, and my server is AT&T. I don't know who Tom's is with, but I was really never to get back on able to get back on VCP once everything filled up. So my list definitely came in handy. And really the biggest benefit of it for me was when I bought the Bob Gibson. I used my list because Wi-Fi was already very spotty and Tom pulled it up too. But really when I bought my Hank Aaron, that's when it had the biggest payoff for me because I used my list because I didn't have Wi-Fi at that point. I can't remember if Tom pulled it up on his phone. But again, when you have, 100,000 people or however many people were crammed into this place at any given time, like to me, that's a huge drain on a Wi-Fi system. And I'm not an IT guy. I don't know how that stuff works to where you can build it up for big events like that. But, even at Cardinals games at Busch Stadium, the last one I went to, like I tried to get on my phone for something during the game and had a hard time getting on Wi-Fi. Now, and that's 40,000 people. And I would guess they were probably in the range of 30, 40, 50,000 people on the national floor at any given time, Thursday and Friday. So I don't know. There are people, Mangini talked about the Wi-Fi and how they can correct that. I hope they do. But I'm glad I had my list, and for me, it was a minor inconvenience. So again, I had the comps written down for the Hank Aaron in the grade and the price range that I was looking for. So if I ever had any problems getting on Wi-Fi immediately, I just went to my list if it was a card that was on my list. Now, Tom had to do me a big solid when I pulled up comps for the Mario Lemieux because we were in early. It was before general admission came in, and I already didn't have cell phone service. And Tom was able to get it pulled up on his phone for the comps for the Mario Lemieux rookie that I bought. And then really that's the only time for me personally that it could have been really inconvenient. So again, I had a great time. I would definitely go to the Cleveland National again. I thought they did an amazing job, especially considering their last national was 2018, and I believe, and the hobby is a whole lot different now than it was in 2018. The hobby is definitely not dying. So for all of the Chicken Littles out there who claim the sky is falling and the hobby is collapsing because prices are going down, like go to a national and see what that looks like. And almost on a daily basis, I get comments on some of my YouTube videos, that, hey, I'm new to the hobby. I've been back a year or two, so there was a big ramping up in the hobby in 2018-19. Then the pandemic happened and it just went insane. And some of those people have left without a doubt, but there are still new people getting into the hobby every day in 2023, 2024, and my guess is will be in 2025. And on my channel, I focus mainly on vintage, kind of moving forward to the junk wax era. I don't really do a whole lot of stuff like post 2000 card wise, unless it's, Albert Pujols, Yadi Molina, Justin Verlander, those types of guys. I don't, and the ultra modern stuff, I really don't mess around with. But a lot of these guys that have messaged me or commented on my videos that have gotten back into the hobby within the last year or two, they're vintage guys because, again, my channel is mainly focused on vintage. So if there are this many guys getting into the vintage stuff, imagine how many younger kids and younger people there are that are getting into the ultra modern stuff. So I think the hobby is going strong. And to me, maybe some of this downward pressure on prices, I'm no economist, but I think there are two things that factor into that. Everything shot up so high that a lot of stuff went to beyond the realm of normality of what a certain card should be priced at. So people were reluctant to continue paying exorbitantly high prices for cards. And then also, I feel that the overall economy is putting pressure on collectors that they don't have as much disposable income to spend on cards. And that's also, again, this is just my opinion. I am not an economist, but I think that that's also putting a certain amount of downward pressure on card prices. But they're still above where they were in even 2018 and 19. So they're still higher than they were pre-pandemic when everything shot through the moon. So, and for me as a collector, and again, I'm speaking solely from my perspective as a collector. To a certain extent, I'm happy to see prices come down because there are a lot of cards out there that I can afford now, along with my increased budget, that I never would have been able to afford before. Like during the height of the pandemic, when a Hank Aaron rookie in a 2 was, I don't know, $4,000 or so. I'm just guessing. Like I would never have been able to afford that because, like, if I saved up my entire budget for a year, yes, I could afford that. But to me, that's not fun. That's not how I like to hobby, is going a full year without buying a card. Now, at a certain point, once I get all the cards that I want within my budget and I want to start getting some bigger cards, then yeah, I could see myself saving, for a year or 6 months or something like that to save up to get a big card. But that's a long time off because there's so many cards that I need in my collection. I mean, you see my air quotes vintage Hall of Fame rookie card collection at this point. It's 8 cards, and that is with the newest card being Tony Gwynn in 83. I have some after that, but 83 and older, like I have 8 of those. And those are huge holes in my collection that I want to work on. So this list, excuse me, this list that I brought with me, I'm going to continue to use because those tier 1 cards are going to be the next priorities in my collection. Unless I take, $300, $400, $500 to a local show, like I'm going to save up and I'm going to buy a Roberto Clemente rookie. And then once I buy a Roberto Clemente rookie, I'm going to buy a Koufax or a Gretzky. And then I will move into the tier 2 cards, which is Stan Musial and Bob Gibson, Yogi Berra, a bunch of that type of stuff. But these cards that are tier 1 on my list are going to be my main focus, and those are going to be my main goals to knock out. The next big card that I plan on picking up is a Roberto Clemente, and hopefully, I don't know, maybe I can do that at Strongsville, or maybe I can do that at the Chicago National next year. But if not, once I have the money saved up and I find a really nice one on eBay, like I'll buy it off of eBay with this eBay guarantee. That does not bother me. It doesn't scare me at all. I would rather buy it at the show because then you have more of the experience and the memory of where you're at and who you're with when you bought that card. And to me, that means a lot. But realistically, I understand that may not always be the case. I may not always be able to do that. And I've also got to consider the travel aspect of it for my budget because, again, I'm on a limited budget. It's a budget that I'm happy with, but it's a set budget. And so I have to consider that. So, for example, at the National, that last day I had $700 left because I had moved some stuff, but my plan was to bring with me $500 or $600 to go toward food and hotel room. Now, I didn't spend nearly that much, but I had to budget it in. And I'm still happy with the Hank Aaron card that I got. I don't think I could have gotten any better card at that show with my budget. But if I didn't have to factor in those travel expenses, I could have upped my budget by $300, $400, $500. And I ended up buying $500 worth of cards on the last day. So I'm happy with how it broke down. It's just a consideration. It's not a complaint. The travel is a consideration. Obviously, because it's going to cost me money to eat. It's going to cost me money to stay in a hotel. And that's going to be a consideration for every single one of these major shows that I go to, whether it's the National or Strongsville or what. And so in some cases, depending on the card that I'm going after, that's a significant consideration, because an extra $500 for a certain card may make all the difference. So at this point, the jury is out on whether or not I'm going to go to the National next year, but I would really like to hit a Strongsville if my schedule works out with school and baseball. So we'll just see how everything works out. I don't have to make the decision right now. We have some time before next year's National, but I just wanted to give my overall impressions and thoughts once I kind of took a few days to decompress. For the most part, shake the National hangover and just have time to kind of reflect on everything. So that's where I sit. I would rate the National as a solid, just the entire experience, everything, the trip there, the hotel, the trip back home, the National floor, the deals I got, the people I met, the get-togethers. I would rate the whole thing as a solid A to A minus. So I've rambled on now for close to 30 minutes, so I will go ahead and wrap that up. But school is about to start back up, so probably here pretty soon, I will more than likely go back to my one video a week on Friday. It just, with school going on and everything being busy, that kind of just fits the schedule better. During the summer, I don't really have a whole lot going on unless we're traveling with family or hanging out with family. So I have time to do 2 or 3 videos a week. But during school, I probably will be too busy to do that. But I'll sneak out extra ones when I can. So we'll see how it goes. But again, thank you so much, everyone, for your support of the channel. Thank you once again to everyone I met that made the National an amazing experience. I'm not going to get emotional this time and cry like an idiot. But I had a great time, and thank you for everyone involved in making it a tremendous experience. So if you're still with me, if you would, please subscribe to the channel. Give this video a like. I would greatly appreciate it. And until the next one, I hope everybody has a good one, and I'll talk to you later.